In 1975, a 9-year-old could walk into any five and dime with a quarter and come out with a pack of candy cigarettes, a book of matches, and a pocket knife, the clerk cheerfully wrapped in paper. He would carry all three to school in a steel lunchbox that doubled as a weapon on the playground, and nobody blinked. Today, every single one of those things would get a kid suspended, expelled, or marched to the principal's office. Number 9 on this list was illegal to even own in some states, all because of a kung fu craze. And number 3 was so powerful that the federal government made it a crime to light one. These 25 objects were once as ordinary as a number 2 pencil. Before we count them down, hit that subscribe button, because you probably owned at least 10 of them. Let's begin at number 25. Number 25, candy cigarettes. Every kid in 1972 knew the ritual. You'd flip open a little cardboard box printed to look exactly like a pack of Lucky Strikes, slide out a chalky white stick with a painted red tip, and hold it between two fingers like your dad did after supper. The best ones came wrapped in paper you could actually puff, blowing out a cloud of powdered sugar that looked just like smoke on a cold morning. They cost a nickel at the corner store, kept right at a child's eye level, next to the bubble gum. Teachers didn't care. Nobody connected the dots that a whole generation was practicing how to smoke before they could spell it. They were never fully outlawed by Washington, but state after state tried. Retailers pulled them. And today, they survive quietly rebranded as candy sticks with a red tip scrubbed off. The tobacco theme that once sold millions is exactly what got them banished from the shelf. Number 24, metal jacks. That little cloth pouch of 10-pointed steel jacks and a red rubber ball came out at recess and turned any patch of tile or sidewalk into a battlefield of skill. You'd scatter the jacks, bounce the ball once, and snatch up onesies, twosies, threesies before it landed again, your knuckles scraping the floor. A set cost a dime and lived in every desk in America. But those jacks were small, sharp, and swallowable, and the rubber ball bounced straight into the choking hazard category the moment safety regulators started measuring toys against a small parts cylinder. By the time zero-tolerance safety rules swept elementary schools, a bag of pointed metal stars scattered across a kindergarten floor was exactly the kind of thing administrators no longer allowed. What was once a test of hand-eye coordination is now a liability memo, and kids today have never felt the specific pain of kneeling on a stray jack in gym socks. Number 23, glass soda bottles. Before the aluminum can took over, your lunch came with a heavy glass bottle of Coke or Nehi grape, and you carried it to school like treasure because the bottle itself was worth a 2-cent deposit when you returned it. You'd pop the cap on the edge of a desk if you were bold, and the fizz would climb over the lip. But glass breaks and a shattered bottle on a lunchroom floor is 100 little blades. As districts modernized and lawsuits multiplied, glass containers of any kind were quietly banned from most campuses in favor of plastic and cans. The clink of a cold bottle against your teeth, the smell of the metal cap, the ritual of the deposit refund, all of it vanished. Today, a kid brings a plastic pouch, and the glass bottle lives only in the recycling bin of memory. Number 22, glass-lined thermoses. Tucked inside that beloved lunchbox was a tall thermos, and the good ones had a mirror-bright glass liner that kept your chicken noodle soup hot until noon. You could hear it if you shook it too hard, that faint tinkle that meant the vacuum seal was doing its job. But drop that thermos on a stairwell, and the inner glass would explode into 1,000 slivers that mixed right into the soup. Generations of kids poured a warm lunch straight into their laps, glinting with glass. Manufacturers eventually swapped the liners for unbreakable steel, and schools stopped allowing the old fragile ones once the danger became obvious. It's the kind of thing that seems almost unthinkable now, handing a first grader a hot metal cylinder full of hidden glass and sending him off to catch the bus. Number 21, metal lunchboxes. Here is where nostalgia turns to legend. That embossed steel lunchbox with your favorite cartoon stamped on the lid was the single most prized possession a kid in the 1970s owned. The corners were sharp, the latch was heavy, and swung by the handle at full speed, it made a genuinely effective weapon on the playground, which is exactly the problem. Word spread for decades that Florida banned metal lunchboxes outright in the early 80s after kids used them to settle disputes at recess. And whether or not the ban was as sweeping as the story claims, the effect was undeniable. By the mid-80s, the steel lunchbox had vanished, replaced by soft vinyl and plastic that couldn't crack a skull, and a tin box that cost a couple of dollars became a collector's item worth hundreds. The thing that made it magnificent, that solid, clanging, indestructible steel, is the exact thing that got it retired. Number 20. Homemade birthday treats. Second guess this one if you want, but it's real. In the 70s, a birthday meant your mom baked 24 cupcakes from scratch, frosted them at the kitchen table, and you carried the whole tray into class, balanced on both arms. The teacher cleared her desk, everybody sang, and nobody asked a single question about ingredients or a kitchen inspection. Today, that tray would be turned away at the classroom door. Faced with allergies, food safety liability, and a patchwork of district rules, schools across the country now require store-bought, individually wrapped, commercially labeled treats only, and plenty ban food celebrations altogether. The homemade cupcake, once the proudest offering a parent could send, is now a compliance risk. A gesture of love from a home kitchen became a form to fill out, and the smell of a mother's frosting drifting down a school hallway is a memory that won't be made again. Number 19, peanut butter sandwiches. For decades, the PB&J was the beating heart of the American lunchbox. Cheap, filling, impossible to ruin, it fed a nation of schoolchildren on a few cents a day, the jelly soaking pink into the bread by lunchtime, just the way you liked it. Then came the growing recognition of severe peanut allergies, and the sandwich that defined childhood became something that could genuinely put another kid in the hospital. One by one, schools declared themselves peanut-free zones, banning the sandwich outright and setting up allergy tables. For the kids, it protects, the ban is life-saving and not up for debate. But for anyone who grew up on that sticky, gluey, perfect sandwich, it's strange to realize the most all-American lunch in history is no longer welcome in the cafeteria. Number 18, self-carried aspirin and medicine. If a 1970s kid had a headache, he had a couple of Bayer aspirin rattling around the bottom of his book bag, and he took them himself at his desk, no questions asked. Girls carried Midol. Somebody always had a tin of something. The school nurse was for scraped knees and thermometers, not for locking up pills. That world is completely gone. Under modern policy, a student caught with even ordinary over-the-counter aspirin can be suspended because virtually every district now bans students from carrying or self-administering any medication. Everything, prescription or not, must be checked in, logged, and dispensed by a nurse with a signed form from home. The reasoning is sound, but the contrast is staggering. A generation that medicated itself between classes raised a generation that can't hand a friend a cough drop without risking a disciplinary hearing. Number 17, pea shooters and spitball straws. Every classroom had a kid armed with a paper straw and a pocket full of dried beans or spitballs, and the back row was a no-fly zone. You'd wait until the teacher turned to the chalkboard, take aim between the shoulder blades of your best friend, and let one fly. The soft thwack, the muffled snort of laughter, the frantic hunt for the culprit, it was low-stakes warfare that cost nothing but a straw from the cafeteria. Today, that same straw is treated as a projectile weapon under conduct codes written for a more serious age, and a kid firing spitballs can land in real trouble for what used to earn a stern look and a seat moved to the front. Some of these bans make you nod. This one makes you smile. The pea shooter was mischief in its purest form, swept up in the same rules meant for far more dangerous things. Number 16, wood-burning kits. In art class and at the kitchen table, kids in the 70s got a wood-burning pen, an electric wand that heated to a few hundred degrees, and they used it to scorch their name into a plaque or a birdhouse. No gloves, no goggles, just a red-hot metal tip in the hand of a 10-year-old and the smell of singed pine filling the room. It taught patience and a real skill, and the burns you got were part of the tuition. But an unshielded heating element hot enough to char oak is a lawsuit waiting to happen. And as safety standards tightened, the classroom woodburner was quietly retired, surviving today only in supervised hobby form with warnings a page long. The idea of handing a grade schooler a device specifically designed to burn things, then walking away to help another student, belongs to a vanished era of trust. Number 15, stink bombs and smoke bombs. Third pattern break, and this one always got a reaction. The novelty catalog in the back of every comic book sold glass stink bomb vials and little smoke balls for pocket change, and a well-timed one could clear a classroom. You'd crush the vial by the radiator, the rotten egg cloud would spread, and 30 kids would groan while the guilty party kept a perfectly straight face. Smoke bombs were saved for the bus or the bike racks, a puff of colored haze and a mad dash. They were sold openly, right alongside whoopee cushions and joy buzzers. Now they are banned outright on school grounds, treated as disruptive chemical devices that can trigger evacuations and very serious conversations with administrators. What was once a harmless prank from the pages of a comic book is now the kind of stunt that ends up in a permanent file, though the memory of that sulfur smell hanging in the homeroom air never quite fades. Number 14, matchbooks. Kids carried matches. That's the plain truth of it. A book of paper matches was free at every diner, gas station, and drugstore, and a 70s kid kept a few in his pocket for lighting firecrackers, campfires, or just the pure fascination of the flame. You learn to strike one off the back cover with your thumb and feel like a grown-up. Nobody thought twice. Today, possession of matches or a lighter on school property is a suspendable offense in most districts, folded into fire safety and weapons policies that leave no room for a curious kid and a book of diamond matches. The confidence of a child who could reliably start a fire, once considered a basic life skill worth having, is now treated as a red flag. A pocketful of fire went from ordinary to forbidden, and the smell of a freshly struck match is a scent most kids today have never encountered. Number 13, sparklers. Come the 4th of July, and often for weeks of school before and after, kids carried sparklers, those thin metal wires that threw off a fountain of white-hot sparks when you lit the tip. You would write your name in the dark, feel the heat inch down toward your fingers, and toss the spent wire in the grass while it was still glowing. What most people never realized is that a burning sparkler reaches temperatures hot enough to melt certain metals, which is why they cause thousands of burn injuries a year, many to small children holding them. Several states banned them entirely, and schools banned them everywhere as the fireworks category came under harder rules. The innocent sparkler, the one firework we handed straight to toddlers, turned out to be one of the most dangerous, and the sight of a whole neighborhood of kids waving fire in the summer dusk is mostly a photograph now. Number 12, squirt guns and water pistols. On the last warm days of the school year, the water pistol was king. A dime store squirt gun filled at the drinking fountain turned the playground into a soaking free-for-all. And the bigger and more realistic the gun, the better. Then toy guns got molded to look exactly like real firearms, and schools adopted zero-tolerance policies that made no distinction between a Colt and a fluorescent water blaster. Suddenly, a kid pointing a plastic squirt gun could be treated as if he'd brought a genuine weapon to campus, and districts banned them outright, along with water balloons and anything else that turned school into a splash fight. the harmless water pistol got caught in a net designed for something far more frightening. A toy whose entire purpose was to get your friends wet became on paper indistinguishable from a threat. Number 11. Cap guns. Every cowboy in America carried one. The cap gun was a die-cast metal revolver that fired a roll of paper caps with a satisfying bang and a puff of smoke that smelled like gunpowder and childhood. You'd blow across the barrel like the gunslingers in the westerns, reload the red roll, and the whole recess turned into a shootout. They were sold in every toy aisle, heavy and shiny and gloriously loud. But the same zero-tolerance wave that swept up water pistols came for the cap gun too, and its realistic metal shape sealed its fate. Under look-alike weapon bans, a cap gun on school grounds is now treated with deadly seriousness, and the toy that armed a generation of pretend lawmen has been banished from the building. The sharp crack of a cap and the smell of that spent paper roll defined 1,000 playground afternoons. Number 10. Slingshots. The slingshot was the badge of every backyard adventurer, a Y-shaped frame with a thick rubber band and a leather pouch, and plenty of kids carried a store-bought Wham-O model or a homemade one whittled from a tree branch right into their bag. You would plink cans off a fence, aim at a knothole, and feel like you could hunt for your supper. It taught aim, patience, and a certain frontier self-reliance. But a slingshot can put out an eye or crack a window from across a parking lot, and as weapons policies expanded, it was formally classified as a prohibited weapon on school grounds in district after district. The tool that Dennis the Menace made famous became the kind of thing that gets confiscated and logged, and there is a straight line from the whittled branch in a boy's back pocket to a suspension letter. Number 9. Nunchucks. When Bruce Lee lit up movie screens and Kung Fu ruled television, every kid in America suddenly wanted nunchucks. 2 hardwood sticks joined by a chain, and they bought them at flea markets and swap meets and swung them wildly in the driveway. The clatter of wood on wood, the whoosh past your own ear, the bruises on your elbows. It was a full-blown craze, and plenty of kids smuggled a pair to school to show off between classes. Then reality set in. Nunchucks in untrained hands are genuinely dangerous, and several states made it flat out illegal to even possess them, with schools banning them everywhere as a weapon. A martial arts prop from a movie became one of the few items on this list that could get you in trouble with actual law, not just the principle, and a generation of self-taught martial artists still has the knots on their heads to prove it. Number 8. The Creepy Crawler's Thing Maker. This one is pure 70s genius and pure 70s madness. Mattel sold a metal hot plate that heated to well over 300 degrees, and kids poured a goopy liquid called Plasti-Goop into metal molds, cooked up rubbery bugs and worms, and pulled them out to scare their sisters. The catch, of course, is that the whole thing was a scalding hot open griddle sitting on a kid's bedroom floor or classroom table, plugged into the wall. Burns were routine, the fumes were memorable. As product safety law caught up, the original scorching Thing Maker was discontinued and eventually reissued decades later in a defanged, low-temperature version that couldn't hurt a fly. The original, the one that could sear a fingerprint clean off, was a tiny industrial furnace marketed to children, and we loved it, and it's a small miracle any of us kept all 10 fingers. Number 7. Mercury thermometers. Every school nurse and every science classroom had them. Slim glass tubes with a bead of shimmering silver liquid that climbed the scale when you held it. And here's the part that horrifies modern parents. When one broke, and they broke constantly, the mercury spilled out in gorgeous little balls that kids would chase across the desk with their fingers, splitting them and merging them like liquid magic. That silver liquid is a potent neurotoxin. As that became undeniable, states began banning the sale of mercury thermometers. Schools pulled them entirely. And a broken one today triggers a hazardous materials cleanup rather than a game. Few objects on this list show the gap between what we knew then and what we know now as starkly as a little glass tube full of shining silver death, once handed casually to a child with a fever. Number 6. Chemistry sets. The real ones, the glorious ones, are gone forever. A 1970s chemistry set came loaded with genuine chemicals, some of them capable of small explosions, real fires, and clouds of eye-watering fumes, and kids mixed them on the kitchen table following a booklet that all but dared you to experiment beyond the instructions. You could grow crystals, ignite reactions, and occasionally scorch the ceiling, and that danger was the entire point, because it produced a generation of curious, fearless future scientists and engineers. Then came liability law, tightening regulations, and later a national nervousness about what those chemicals could be used for, and the powerful home chemistry set was systematically stripped down to baking soda and food coloring. Schools followed, locking away anything that could actually react. The set that once let a child hold a real chemical reaction in a test tube is now a museum piece, and we traded the burns and the wonder for safety. Number 5. Pocket knives. This is the one that stuns people most. In the 1970s, a boy carrying a Swiss Army knife or a simple folding blade to school was not a scandal. It was normal. Scouts were taught to whittle with them. Farm kids used them for chores before the bell. You sharpened pencils, cut string, and traded knives on the bus like baseball cards. And a teacher who saw yours might ask to borrow it. A pocket knife was a tool, a rite of passage, and a sign that a kid was becoming capable. Then, zero-tolerance weapons policies arrived in the 90s and erased every shade of gray. Today, a single folding knife, however small, however innocent the intent, can mean automatic suspension or expulsion. No exceptions, no story allowed. The most useful object a kid could own became the one most certain to end his school year. Nothing measures the distance we've traveled quite like the humble pocket knife. Number 4. BB guns. Ralphie wanted his Red Ryder for a reason, because in the 70s, a BB gun or a pellet rifle was a birthday morning dream, and kids brought them to show off before heading out to plink cans in the empty lot behind the school. You learned to aim, to respect the thing, to never point it at a person, and mostly, everybody kept both eyes. It was practically a rite of passage in small-town America, the first real trigger a kid ever pulled. But a BB can blind, and as weapons policies hardened, the air rifle went from a cherished gift to a firearm in the eyes of the school code. Bring one onto campus today, and it is handled exactly like bringing a real gun, with all the consequences that follow. The Christmas morning icon that Gene Shepard turned into legend would now get Ralphie expelled. Number 3, cherry bombs and firecrackers. 4th pattern break, and this one has real gunpowder behind it. In the 70s, kids got their hands on cherry bombs and M80S, small round explosives powerful enough to blow up a mailbox or a toilet, and the legends of what happened when someone smuggled one to school are still traded at reunions. Ordinary firecrackers, the little strings you'd light and toss, were pocket currency around the 4th of July, and a lit one dropped in a metal trash can made a sound that emptied a hallway. Here's the part people forget. The big ones were already so dangerous that federal law cracked down hard, restricting the most powerful consumer firecrackers and effectively making it a crime to light the worst offenders. Schools banned every last one. The difference between a firecracker and a genuine explosive got very thin very fast, and Washington drew the line in law. The kids who lit them grew up amazed they still had all their fingers. Number 2, clackers. 2 heavy acrylic balls swinging from a string with a ring in the middle, and the entire point was to smack them together faster and faster over the hand and under until the whole school echoed with that manic clack, clack, clack. Every kid in the early 70s had a pair, and you could hear a hallway full of them from a block away. But those acrylic balls had a fatal flaw. Swung hard enough, they shattered, spraying shards like shrapnel into faces, eyes and teeth, and bruised wrists and black eyes were just the ordinary cost of playing. The Society for the Prevention of Blindness issued a warning, and the FDA cited injuries and moved against them. And here's the detail that lands exactly right. School districts across the country banned clackers before the federal government even finished acting, confiscating them on site while Washington was still testing. By the mid-70s, they were declared a mechanical hazard and swept off the shelves. The most addictive toy of the decade was also one of the first to be outlawed. Number 1. Lawn darts. And at the very top stands the deadliest thing a 1970s kid ever played with. Lawn darts, or jarts, were heavy steel-tipped spikes nearly a foot long, meant to be hurled underhand across a yard to stick in the ground inside a plastic ring, and they turned up at every barbecue, every field day, and every backyard within reach of a school-age child. The tip wasn't razor sharp. It didn't need to be. Thrown into the air, a lawn dart came down with enough force. Researchers estimated tens of thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch to punch straight through a human skull. Between 1980 and 1988, more than 6,000 Americans landed in emergency rooms because of them, most of them children, and at least 3 children were killed. It took a grieving father named David Snow, whose 7-year-old daughter Michelle died when a dart sailed over a fence in 1987 to force the issue. He made 7 trips to Washington, testified before Congress, and in 1988 the Consumer Product Safety Commission banned lawn darts across the entire United States, ordering families to destroy the ones they owned. The most casual object on this list, a lawn game tossed around while the grown-ups grilled, turned out to be the one that finally moved the federal government to say, never again. 25 ordinary objects: a pocket knife, a book of matches, a steel lunchbox, a bead of silver mercury chased across a desk. None of them felt dangerous at the time because a kid was simply trusted to carry fire and blades and shining poison and somehow make it to adulthood. Every ban on this list has a real reason behind it, and some saved lives. But together they tell one clear story, that the world a 1970s kid walked into every morning would be unrecognizable today. Which of these did you actually own? Drop the number in the comments and tell me the one you're honestly surprised we all survived.